This is the International Soccer Preview, and we are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 17. We're looking at the squads of the 2023 Gold Cup. This is the full-length version for El Salvador's players. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. I'm Kevin, and this is Series 17 on the players of the 2023 Gold Cup, and this episode covers El Salvador's players. Just a couple of notes before we begin. This mediacast is in two parts. So the first is done in May 2023 right now, and this is an overview of the candidates for the squad and our guess as to their likelihood of making it to the final squad. The second part will be done in June and then added on to this one, and it will be produced after the squad lists are released. So hopefully we'll get the preliminary squad as well as the final squad, and this will let you know among the candidates who actually did make the team, and you can also see how accurate our predictions were. So we did those two parts in separate shows for the World Cup and in previous player series. Actually, we did cover El Salvador's players at the beginning of World Cup, at the beginning of the final round of World Cup 2022 qualifying. So this is updating that. We're going to give a few less details here than we did there, focusing more on recent history, and this will kind of update you. So we're organizing this as we always do by position, realizing that this is not always accurate because players do change positions. And well, we expect a few surprises. There always are. So in part two, in June, we'll cover any unexpected things as best we can, including injuries that we know about. Okay, let's begin by, well, we have been beginning by looking at the games and formations that they've been in, but we actually wondered what the point was. That seems to make more sense going into a tournament. Hang on a second, we are going into a tournament. Anyway, we did it for a couple of teams, and it didn't seem to add much to the podcast, but I will make a couple of points that are relevant. Firstly, El Salvador did have a couple of games there where they've tried recent players. So actually there's a long list of players with really just one cap in that game, or maybe one cap and a bench appearance. And we started to add these to the list, and then we thought it would make it a bit tedious. So what we're going to do is actually save those players. We kind of have their names, and then if we see them playing in June, they have a trip abroad playing Japan and South Korea. If we see them there, or if they're named to the preliminary squad, then we will add that information in part two. The other thing is that El Salvador has a number of players who have just dropped off the team. So something seems to be going on, and we'll talk about that as we go through some of the names that we expected to be there, but in fact that haven't played for a while for the team, so are pretty low on the likelihood list. Okay, with those things in mind, let's begin, and we will start with the manager. So the manager is Hugo Perez, and he has been the manager of the national team since 2021. So he did take them through the 2021 Gold Cup there, where they fell at the group stage, but played well against Mexico in game 3, I must say. And yeah, and he's been kind of in and around the national team since about 2015. He was actually born in the United States. Was he born in the United States? Anyway, I think he grew up in the United States, and he was actually involved with the USA national team, especially the underage teams there. And he was a player himself. Oh yes, he played for the United States. That's where I'm getting this. Okay, he played for the United States as a player from 1984 to 94, earning 73 caps and 15 goals. So experience both as a player and gaining experience as a manager. He does have a loyalty to El Salvador, even though he is American. Okay, I put his name in the wrong place. It should be under manager on the little graphic that we have for the YouTube version. And let's begin with goalkeepers. So we have one definite goalkeeper in Mario Gonzalez. So Mario Gonzalez has been with the team actually just since 2021, and he is 26 years old now. And he has 6 caps and 0 goals and plays for Alianza in El Salvador. But he's worked his way into the team very quickly because he has just the 6 caps, but he was the starter in the 2022 Gold Cup, sorry, the 2021 Gold Cup. And since that time, he has started 8 of their 14 games. And we're measuring recent history from the start of 2022 here. So 14 games since 2022. He started 8 of them, was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 3. So just 2 matches that he was not selected for. We think he's a definite to make the squad. We're not really commenting on starter, who's going to be starter and on the bench here, but he looks like he would be the starter as well. At the likely level, we have Thomas Romero. So Thomas Romero also has 6 caps for the national team. He's just 22 years old. And like Mario Gonzalez, has been with the team since 2021. But he is younger at 22 years old, and he plays for Toronto in Canada. Recently moved there, actually, from Los Angeles FC, LAFC in the USA. And he earned his first cap in December of 2021. And then started 4 of their 14 games since the start of 2022, on the bench for 3. So not selected for 7 matches, but those were the first 7 matches. So he seems to have worked his way quite nicely into the team, and we consider Thomas Romero a likely candidate. At the possible level, we have just one, and it's Kevin Carabantes. And Kevin Carabantes has 7 caps, so no, he is the most capped goalkeeper that we have on the list here. And Kevin Carabantes is 28 years old and has been with the team a little longer, since 2018. And he plays in El Salvador and always has. He was a backup keeper for the 2019 and 2021 Gold Cups. And he has since started 2 of their 14 games, their last 14 games, on the bench for 7 of those and not selected for 5 others. Although he wasn't selected for the last 3 matches, so that's a bit worrying going into a tournament. And so we have Kevin Carabantes as a possible candidate. And our last candidate is Oscar Pleites. And we have him as possible but unlikely, also very new to the team since 2019. And he doesn't have any caps for the team, and he plays in El Salvador. Pleites is 30 years old, so he's the most senior of the keepers here. He was a backup keeper for the 2019 and 2021 Gold Cups, behind Henry Hernandez in 2019 and behind Mario Gonzalez in 2021. But after the 2021 Gold Cup, he was off the squad for 9 months, and he just returned for 1 game in April of 2022 where he was on the bench, and has not been selected since then, 7 matches since then. So it doesn't seem to be part of the planning right now. Oscar Pleites, a possible but unlikely candidate. All right, we move on to defenders, and we start with central defenders. And in the definite category, we have Roberto Dominguez. So Roberto Dominguez has been with El Salvador. I'm forgetting which team I'm doing here. Has been with El Salvador since 2015, and he is 26 years old, and he has 57 caps and 1 goal, and he plays for the biggest club, I think, in El Salvador, FAS, and that is his second time with them. And he was part of the Gold Cups in 2017 and 19. In 2017 and in 2021, he was on the roster but saw no action. He was on the bench for all the games. In 2019, he started and finished all 3 games. Anyway, in the last 14 games since the beginning of 2020, he has started 9 of the games and subbed in for 1. So we consider him a definite candidate, even though he seems a bit touch and go as a starter. Okay, next we have a couple of likely candidates. The first is Ronald Rodriguez. So Ronald Rodriguez is 24 years old and has been with El Salvador just since 2021, but he does have 29 caps for them, and he plays for FC Tulsa in the USA, having moved from El Salvador. He was a starter in his first tournament, the 2021 Gold Cup, where he started and finished all 4 games. And he actually earned his first cap just before that tournament, so he's gotten into the team quite quickly. Recently, he started 9 of their last 14 games and subbed in for 1, and he wasn't selected for 4 matches. However, those include the last 2 matches, so that's a little bit worrying. So we have Ronald Rodriguez as a likely candidate. The other likely candidate is Eric Zavaleta. And Eric Zavaleta has been with El Salvador since 2021, and he's 30 years old and has 22 caps and 2 goals. So a bit of a late starter, there. Actually, he was born in the USA, but his father, Carlos Zavaleta, played for the El Salvador national team, and he's currently with LA Galaxy in the USA, having moved there from a long spell with Toronto in Canada. His first Gold Cup was the 2021 Gold Cup then, and he started and finished all 4 games there, and he started 7 of their 14 games since the start of 2022, as well as subbing in for 1 and on the bench for 1. So 5 games he wasn't called up for, and we consider Eric Zavaleta a likely candidate for the 2023 Gold Cup. We have 3 candidates at the possible level. And the first one is Romulo Villalobos. Romulo Villalobos. And he has been with El Salvador since 2021 and is 25 years old, but just 7 caps and 1 goal for Villalobos. And he plays in El Salvador. His whole career has been in El Salvador. And he was actually selected for the 2021 Gold Cup, but he was injured before the tournament, so was replaced. And since the start of 2022, he actually didn't start any of their games, but he was subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 7. So just 5 of the 14 games he wasn't called up for. So, yeah, it doesn't look like a starter here, but we consider him a possible candidate to reach the cup. The next one is Rudy Clavel. Rudy Clavel has been just since 2022, so fairly new to the team, even though he's 26 years old, and he just has 5 caps, and he also plays for FAS. I'm going to call them FAS in El Salvador. Including his first cap in June 2022, he started 1 of their remaining 7 games, but he also subbed in for 3 and was on the bench, so not selected for 2, just 2 of their last 7 games. So we consider Rudy Clavel a possible candidate. And the third possible candidate is Eric Zabaleta. And he has been with the team since 2022. But he's not young. He's 30 years old and has earned just 4 caps for the national team. So a real latecomer to the team. He plays for Alajuelense in Costa Rica and was actually born in Costa Rica. So he played for other clubs there too. And he got his first cap for El Salvador in June of 2022. And he started 2 of their remaining 6 games, as well as subbing in for 2. Yes, and Eric Sabalzeta, or Cabalzeta, it might be, a possible candidate. Actually, the player who subbed in for, or the player who replaced Romulo Villalobos in the 2021 Gold Cup when he was ruled injured was Julio Cibrian. And Julio Cibrian we have as seemingly off the squad now. So he got his first cap in 2021, and he's 25 years old, and he just has 3 caps. So he plays for Aguila in El Salvador. And as I said, he was part of the 2021 squad, 2021 Gold Cup squad, when he was called in to replace Villalobos. So he didn't see any action in that tournament there, but he got a couple of games after the tournament, but last appeared for the national team in April 2022. So off the team for more than a year, Julio Cibrian. So we consider him not having a good chance to reach the cup. We have another candidate who seems to be off the squad, and that is Lisandro Claro. So he's been with the team since 2021 and has 3 caps, and he is 24 years old, and he's played in El Salvador, and he first appeared on the bench in September 2021, so after the Gold Cup, but then he played 3 games and had his last appearance in June of 2022, so he kind of came and went quickly, but he is young, and so we might see him back on the team in the future. Okay, let's move on to left backs, and we begin with Alexander Larin. We in Canada are a little mad at Alexander Larin because when we played El Salvador, we thought he should have gotten the red card for a rough tackle. Alexander Larin is a veteran with El Salvador, and he has been with the team since 2012, and he's 30 years old with 78 caps and 7 goals. So he plays for Alianza in El Salvador. And he has played in Mexico and Guatemala, but all in the Americas. And his first tournament was the 2013 Gold Cup, and he didn't make it to the 2019 Gold Cup. He wasn't selected there. Maybe some problem like an injury or something like that, because he was a starter in the 2021 Gold Cup, started all 4 games there, and he was actually very good in defense there, and hit the post with a great free kick too. So Alexander Larin has started 8 of their 14 games since the start of 2022, and he was on the bench for 1. However, he was not selected for their last 3 matches, and this is a bit of a pattern I noticed with El Salvador, which is a bit worrying. So yeah, he's probably a definite candidate, but because of that, we moved him down to a likely candidate. Him and some other players that you'll see coming up. We have a possible candidate for left back too, and that's Nelson Blanco. And Nelson Blanco is new to the team since 2021. He hasn't been involved in any tournaments, and he's sometimes known as Nelson Flores, actually, I should point out. And he is 23 years old, and plays for North Carolina FC in the USA. I believe that's the second level of US soccer there. And he earned his first cap in November 2021, but only started 1 of their 14 games since the start of 2022. But he was subbed in for 4, so kind of in and around the team, but not a well-established member of it. Okay, and we have several possible but unlikely candidates. So the first is Alexis Renderos. Alexis Renderos has been with the team since 2021, and he is 24 years old. 25 years old, but just 4 caps in that time. Plays for Alianza in El Salvador, and he was on the roster for the 2021 Gold Cup, but he didn't see any action there. And since the beginning of 2022, he started actually returned after a 15-month absence in November of 2022. So basically, from the time of the Gold Cup, he was off the team until he came back to start one of their remaining 3 games to May 2023. So they only had 3 games between November and May, so not a lot to go on actually. And he wasn't selected for 2 of those games, so we consider him unlikely. But as I say, there's not a lot to go on, so I'm expecting to be wrong on some of these, especially players who missed the last 3 games. Next candidate is Eduardo Vigil. And he's been with the team since 2021 and earned his first cap in August 2021, so just after the Gold Cup there. And he played 12 caps in that time, all up until June 2022, when he suddenly stopped being called up for the team. So he looked like he was making very good inroads there, but now seems to be almost off the squad. We have him as possible but unlikely. And we have also Aiden Climaco as possible but unlikely. And he is 22 years old and has been with the team since 2022. Just 1 cap, and he plays in Costa Rica for a small team there. And he got his first cap in November of 2022, and then he subbed in for one of the remaining matches there. No, he just got that cap as a substitute, but since it was so recent, we added him to the list here. The same thing is true of the next candidate, Walter Pineda. So Walter Pineda got his first appearance on the bench in November 2022. He's just 20 years old and doesn't have any caps yet, but he was on the bench for 2 of those remaining 3 games. So again, when they come in at the end like that, it's hard to tell how much of a consideration they were. So Walter Pineda joining left backs Aiden Climaco and Eduardo Vigil and Alexis Renderos as possible but unlikely candidates. And then we have one candidate who seems to be off the squad, Miguel Lemus. And Miguel Lemus has been with I keep saying Costa Rica, has been with El Salvador since 2021, and he is 28 years old, just 9 caps. No, he's been with El Salvador, since 2014 and has just 9 caps. And he plays in El Salvador. He was on the bench for the 2021 Gold Cup. That was the only tournament he was called up for. And he played a bit after that, but last appeared for the national team in March of 2022. So he's kind of been around, but seems to be off the squad recently. Okay, that is quite a few left backs that we looked at, and we move on to right backs, where the prime candidate is definite. We consider him a definite player to reach the cup, Brian Tamakis, and Brian Tamakis has been with El Salvador since 2016. Hey, I got it right. It's El Salvador, and he is 27 years old. 28 years old, actually, and has 66 caps and 2 goals. He recently moved to Oakland Roots in the USA, having played for Alianza and other teams all throughout his career in El Salvador. And he was a starter for the 2017 and 2019 Gold Cups, and also for the 2021 Gold Cup as well. And since that time, he's been regularly starting 12 of their last 14 games, not selected for 2 others. So Brian Tamakis we consider him a definite candidate. And let me put him in the right place here as a right back. And we also have Alex Roldan as a likely candidate as right back. He's been with El Salvador since 2021, but he's 26 years old, and he has 19 caps and 2 goals. He was born in the USA, and in fact, his brother plays for the United States national team, but he joined El Salvador. They have Guatemalan roots as well too. He was a sub in the 2021 Gold Cup, but then he gained a starting position for games 3 and 4 there, and actually was in his international debut against Guatemala. He was really conflicted because he had an affinity for both countries. And an interesting little vignette there. Anyway, since his first cap in the 2021 Gold Cup, he started 5 of their 14 games since the start of 2022 and was subbed in for 1. But I think we kind of bump him up a little bit. The statistics say possible, but I think it's a little higher than that. So we have him as a likely candidate. A possible candidate is William Canales. So William Canales, brand new to the team actually, and he is 28 years old though. So he got his first cap at 28 years old, and that was in March of 2023. And he subbed into that game and was on the bench for the only other game since that time. He plays for Alianza in El Salvador, and because he kind of joining late there, we put him as a possible candidate. The last candidate at right back is Jamie Ortiz, and I think it's pronounced Haim, but I'm not sure. Ortiz, I'll just go with that. Ortiz doesn't have any caps for the national team, and he is 29 years old, and he got his first appearance on the bench in April 2022, and was on the bench for 2 more games since then. So again, it doesn't look likely, but there is a possibility there. Okay, and the last defender we'll talk about is coded as just a general defender. Basically, he's new, so we haven't seen where in the defense he plays, and he's a possible but unlikely candidate. And his name is Kevin Menjivar. No caps for the national team, but he was on the bench for 3.5 years before he came back, and didn't start any games, but was on the bench for 3 games, 3 of their last 6 games. And that's the story with him. So he's been in and around the team for quite a while, and plays for Alianza in El Salvador, but not a likely candidate either. Okay, let's move on to the midfield, where we have a general midfielder. I kind of recoded him because he's kind of all over the field, and it's Darwin Seren, and we have him as a likely candidate. So Darwin Seren has been with El Salvador since 2012, and he's 33 years old now, with 90 caps and 5 goals. And he recently moved back to El Salvador to play for Aguila, having been with Houston Dynamo and other American teams before that. His first tournament was the 2013 Gold Cup, and he's been a starter in every cup, and in fact was the captain in the 2021 Gold Cup, where he started all 4 games. And since that time, actually hasn't started as much, only 3 of their last 14 games since the start of 2022, but he was subbed in for 6 and on the bench for 1. And again, he's another of those players that missed the last 3 matches. So we're not really sure what's going on. That would be missing all of their games since last November. We'll see if these June games shed any light on that. But we would have him as definite, but we move him down to likely because he missed the last 3 games. Okay, now we have more specifically coded players as defensive midfielders, starting with Christian Martinez. Christian Martinez we have as a likely candidate. He plays for El Salvador since 2021, and he has 15 caps and is 29 years old. And you may have noticed that I keep saying Costa Rica instead of El Salvador. So the psychological gods are appeasing me here by being able to say he did play 2 games for Costa Rica in 2021 before he moved over to El Salvador. And he still plays his club soccer in Costa Rica with San Carlos. He hasn't been part of any tournaments. Actually, he was on the preliminary squad for El Salvador's Gold Cup in 2009, didn't make the final cut. Maybe that persuaded him to try out for Costa Rica since he was eligible. Now he's back with El Salvador and has started 3 of their 14 games since the start of 2022. And he's also subbed in for 4 and on the bench for 3. So just 4 of the 14 games that he wasn't called up for. So we consider Christian Martinez a likely candidate. And that's about the best we have there, because the other candidates are both possible but unlikely. One of them is Melvin Cartagena. So he's been with El Salvador since 2021 and has 2 caps and is 23 years old. And he plays in El Salvador but hasn't been a part of any tournament. He was selected for the 32-man preliminary squad, but was one of the 9 who were cut, and actually got his first cap in March of 2023. Wait, I'm getting a little confused in my notes. I'll just leave it at he has 2 caps for the national team and is unlikely to make the team because, yes, just those 2 caps, and he wasn't selected for 10 games since the start of 2022. Sorry, I'm a little confused, but we do have him as possible, but unlikely. Same with Jeremy Garay there, and he has been with the team since 2021. He's very young, actually, just 20 years old, and 1 cap for him, and he's with DC United in the United States, and but he was loaned to a smaller club called Loudoun United in 2023. He was born in the United States, and he got his first cap in August of 2022 and didn't start any of their 14 games since the start of 2022, but was on the bench for 1 and with the under-23 team for 1 and missed the 12 others. We consider him possible but unlikely, but looks like a bit of a future candidate there. Our last candidate is Isaac Portillo, who seems to be off the squad. He's only been with El Salvador since 2021, but he is 28 years old, and he earned 15 caps in a fairly short time, all in 2021 and the beginning of 2022. So he was a sub in the 2021 Gold Cup, coming into 3 games there, and another player who looked like he was making very good inroads into the team and then abruptly stopped in April 2022. So there are a few curiosities like this with El Salvador. Isaac Portillo seemingly off the squad. He's been with Alianza in El Salvador, by the way, since 2013, so his whole career with the same club. We move on to central midfielders and begin with Narciso Orellana, who we have as a definite candidate. And Orellana has been with El Salvador since 2014 and is 28 years old and has 59 caps and 1 goal. He is also with Alianza in El Salvador, and his first Gold Cup was in 2015, and he's been a part of every Gold Cup every 2 years since then. And he started and finished games 1, 2, and 3 in that Gold Cup, but he was suspended on yellows for game 4 in 2021. And he started 10 of their 14 games since the start of 2022, subbed in for 3. So just one match that he wasn't selected for. So Narciso Orellana, a definite candidate. And we have another definite candidate, Brian Landaverde. Brian Landaverde has been with El Salvador since 2015, but not that many caps, just 17 caps for the 28-year-old and no goals. And he plays for FAS in El Salvador. And he, despite being on the team since 2015, has not made it to a Gold Cup. So he was on the preliminary squad in 2015, 2017, and 2019. But didn't make the final cut. And actually, he earned his first cap in September 2021. So after the 2021 Gold Cup, I don't have any notes for him on the 2021 Gold Cup. It may be that he was actually off the team for a while as well. Got his first cap in September 2021 and went on to start 9 of their 14 games since the start of 2022. So just 3 games that he wasn't selected for. So after a long time trying, he's finally inserted himself quite well into the squad, and we have Brian Landaverde as a definite candidate. We jump all the way down to possible but unlikely candidates now with Eric Calvillo. And Eric Calvillo has been with has been with El Salvador since 2021, and he has 9 caps and is 24 years old. And he plays for El Paso Locomotive, kind of a odd mix of Russian and Western lore there. El Paso Locomotive in the USA since 2022. He earned his first cap in November of 2021, and last appeared for the team on June 2022. So a short time on the squad for him, and now he seems almost off it. But we do have him as possible, but unlikely. Same with Robinson Aguirre. So Robinson Aguirre got his first cap in 2022. He's just 20 years old, though, and he plays for Colorado Rapids, their B team in the USA. And he got his first cap in April 2022. And he's been with the under-23 team for a bit, but basically just one cap and 1 appearance on the bench, and not selected for the other matches. So very young, though, so may make his way into the team. Robinson Aguirre. And finally, more of a veteran who seems to be off the squad in Marvin Monterosa. So Marvin Monterosa has been with the team since 2014, and he has 41 caps and 2 goals. And he plays for Alianza in El Salvador. And he has been part of the Gold Cup actually only since 2019. He was not selected in 2015 and didn't make the final cut in 2019. But for the 2021 Gold Cup, well, I have him as captain here, but I think I had Darwin Suarez as captain too, so a bit of confusion. Anyway, he did start all of the 4 games in the 2021 Gold Cup. And since then, having missed only one of 19 games up until November 2022, he last appeared for the national team in February 2022 on the bench. So another player who kind of abruptly went missing. It's a bit like the leftovers here. Marvin Monterosa, or the snap, a bit like that with several of the El Salvador players. And he is seemingly off the squad. I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of these big names do come back for the Cup, though. And we'll let you know in the second half about that. Okay, moving on to left midfielders, we have a definite candidate in Jairo Enriquez. Well, Jairo Enriquez has been with the team since 2015, and he has 18 caps and 3 goals. Does the 28-year-old. 29-year-old actually, and he plays for Colorado Springs Switchback in the USA, having moved there from El Salvador, where he played most of his career. He was part of the 2015 Gold Cup, but then not called up for another Gold Cup until 2021, where he was a starter. So since then, he's been involved quite a bit. Started 13 of their 14 games since the start of 2022, and on the bench for one other. So I think actually there was a bit of a gap there between 2015, because most of his caps have come since 2021, and now he looks like a starter playing virtually every game for them. So Jairo Enriquez, a definite candidate. We jump all the way down to a left midfielder that's seemingly off the squad. So it's Denny Pineda. And Denny Pineda has been with the team since 2014 and has 32 caps and 3 goals. And he is 24 years old and plays for Aguila in El Salvador. And another player who was on the Gold Cup 2017 squad, but another player who missed some Gold Cups in between. So he was on the preliminary squad in 2019 and didn't even make that in 2021. But he has come back since. But he last appeared for the team in June 2022. So another player who went missing, although in fairness, he hasn't seen much action since 2017. Okay, moving on to right midfielders. We have a possible candidate with Leonardo Menjivar. Leonardo Menjivar, brand new to the team since 2023, and he's 22 years old, just 2 caps there and no goals. And he plays for Chalatenango in El Salvador, and he got his first cap in March 2023 and subbed into both of their remaining games there up until the end of May, which is now. And so again, kind of latecomers like that, we usually put them as possible candidates, even if they don't have a lot of caps. Next, we have a possible but unlikely candidate in Kevin Santamaria. So right midfielder, also listed as a right defender. He has been with the team since 2013, and he has 19 caps and no goals. And Kevin Santamaria is 31 years old now, and he plays in Peru. He's kind of played all over South America, mostly in El Salvador, actually, but a little bit in Guatemala as well. He was a substitute in the 2013 Gold Cup, and then really not on the team after that. In fact, he returned after an almost 7-year absence in March of 2022 to start one of their remaining 11 games, and then he subbed in for one and was on the bench for one. All of those were in March of 2022, and then he disappeared after that. So again, another disappearing act, a bit unlike the others where he also magically appeared and magically disappeared. Kevin Santamaria, possible but unlikely right midfielder. Okay, we move over to the left wing as we go upfield here, and we have Kevin Reyes as a likely candidate. And Kevin Reyes has been with El Salvador since 2021 and has 14 caps, which is pretty good. He's just 23 years old, and he plays for FAS in El Salvador, moving back there recently for the second time, having played for a team called Alashkert in Armenia. He got his first cap in August of 2021, so shortly after the last Gold Cup, and started 7 of their 14 games since the start of 2022, subbing in for 1 and on the bench for 4. So just 2 matches that he wasn't selected for. And the only reason I guess we have him as a likely candidate rather than definite is because he is so new to the team. but especially supporting his case is the fact that there's only one more candidate in this position, and he's at the possible but unlikely level. That's Armando Moreno, and Armando Moreno has been with the team since 2021 and has 10 caps, so doing well there. And plays for New Mexico United in the USA, where he was born. And he was part of the Gold Cup in 2021, just as a substitute. And after the Gold Cup, he was absent for 11 months, but he returned in November of 2022, subbed in for one of their remaining 3 games, and then wasn't selected for 2 others. So he kind of came and went quickly. I wonder if possible but unlikely is a little bit harsh, because he's really just missed the 2 games. But we'll leave him there for the time being, and maybe find out that we were wrong when we see the squads in part 2. Right wingers, we have a possible candidate in Joshua Perez. So Joshua Perez has been with the team since 2021. So you'll see a lot of these players came into the team in 2021. Josh Perez is 25 years old and has 18 caps and 3 goals. He too, like Armando Moreno, was born in the USA, but he plays for a small club called Montevarchi in Italy, having moved there from Miami FC. He's also played in Spain, but has been kind of all over the place since he started playing soccer. He was part of the Gold Cup squad, was Joshua Perez, in 2021. He started all 4 games there, and he was a second top scorer in World Cup 2022 qualifying with 3 of their 27 goals. But he was off the team. He was off the team, just like Armando Moreno, for 11 months, and he returned in November 2022 and started one of their 3 remaining games and was not selected for 2 others. Now, we put him as a possible candidate, but he has a very similar record to Armando Moreno, and I think it's Moreno who I think I will move up to the possible category as a left winger, and Joshua Perez is also possible as a right winger. We have 2 other candidates who seem to be off the team, and one of them is Walmer Martinez, who also joined El Salvador in 2021. And he got 20 caps and 2 goals. He plays for Monterey Bay in the USA, and I'm just looking for his age. He's 23 years old. And he was also part of the Gold Cup squad, also born in the USA, so a lot of similarities among these players. He, however, was just a substitute in the 2021 Gold Cup, and is another of the players who played a lot of games up until April 2022 and then just went missing. So currently AWOL is Walmer Martinez, and I seriously wonder what's going on with that. Okay, and finally, Roberto Molino also seems to be off the squad. Yet another who got his first cap in 2021, but he has only 6 caps in his time with the squad. And he is with Indy 11 in the USA, having moved from Las Vegas Lights there in the USA. So he earned his first cap in August 2021, and then last appeared for the team in June 2022. So in a sense, another of the players who have kind of gone missing in the spring and summer of 2022. That is right wingers, and we move on now to forwards. And we have 3 likely candidates as attacking midfielder, which is our first position in the forward line. The first one is Enrico Hernandez. Enrico Hernandez has been with the team since 2021, and he has 16 caps and 1 goal, and he's 22 years old. He's sometimes called an Enrico Duenes. He was called up to the preliminary squad for the 2021 Gold Cup, that 32-man preliminary squad, having never appeared for the national team, even on the bench, and he wasn't selected for the squad in the end. He earned his first cap shortly after in September 2021 and started 7 of their 14 games, as well as subbing in for 1 and on the bench for 2, so absent for just 4 games. And I don't think I mentioned that he plays for Cartagena B in Spain, having played for Vitesse in the Netherlands as well. So, and Enrico Hernandez, a likely candidate. And now we get to the Gill brothers, and we begin with Meyer Gill, who has been with El Salvador since 2022. So this is kind of exciting. Meyer Gill plays. So the Gill family has connections with Colombia. They were all born in Colombia, and there's 3 brothers. Oh, there may be more. I know of 3 brothers, and they're making their way onto the team here. So actually, they come from a family of Colombian footballers. Although none of them played for the Colombian national team. So Meyer Gill got his first cap in November 2022, and he started 1 of their 3 remaining games and was subbed in for another one. And so we consider him a likely candidate. And the next one, Brian Gill, joined the team a bit later in 2023. And so he is 21 years old. And he also plays in Colombia, but for a different team. Meyer plays for Alianza Petrolera, and Brian plays for Deportes Tolima, having actually moved from Petrolera recently in 2023. So Brian got his first cap in March of 2023, and and that was the last game that they played. So these guys working their way into the team recently. We're going to talk about Christian Gill, the 3rd brother, as a forward here, but we'll finish with attacking midfielders by talking about Harold Osorio. We have him as a possible but unlikely candidate, and Harold Osorio plays for Chicago Fire in the USA, and the B team of Chicago Fire, I should say. He got his first cap in August 2021 and then was off the team and returned after a 13-month absence in November 2022 to start one of their 3 remaining games, and then was not selected for the 2 others. So again, maybe a bit harsh putting him as possible but unlikely. In fact, I think no, I'll leave him where he is, but it may be a bit harsh. So there's the attacking midfield candidates, and we have no secondary strikers. So we move on to forwards, and we see the 3rd brother, Christian Gill, as a likely candidate. So he too born in Colombia, but he himself plays in El Salvador for FAS, and he has 12 caps and 3 goals, and is 26 years old, so the oldest of the brothers. And he started 7 of their games since the beginning of 2022, subbed in for 4 and on the bench for 1, and not selected for just 2 games. So I kind of have a fancy that the El Salvadorian team might bring all 3 together to see how they work. I think we may have been a bit generous putting the other 2 as likely candidates, but I just have the feeling that they might try that, and it might make for a fun tournament. Anyway, Christian Gill himself is probably the most likely of the brothers to make it. We have a possible candidate in Nelson Bonilla. So Nelson Bonilla has been with the team since 2012 and has 57 caps and 19 goals. So that's about 33%. So that's a good scoring ratio for the 32-year-old. And he's been with a couple of teams in Thailand over the years, actually dating back to 2018. But he has switched teams, so seems to like playing in Thailand, and a bit of a globetrotter because he's been in Portugal and Turkey as well, and in Azerbaijan. So Nelson Bonilla has been part of Gold Cup since 2015. However, he didn't make the 2021 Gold Cup. He wasn't even selected for the preliminary squad there. And he, since that time, has been on the team, though, and he started 6 of their 14 games since the start of 2022, subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 2. So almost at the likely level here, but we have him as possible because he wasn't selected for the 2021 Gold Cup. And we thought maybe we thought at the time maybe he was aging out a little bit. Anyway, looks to be making a comeback. Next, we have possible candidate Joaquin Rivas. Joaquin Rivas has been with El Salvador since 2018, and he has 32 caps and 4 goals, and is 31 years old. He plays for Miami FC in the USA, and has been with teams in the USA actually all his career. So I wonder if he was raised there. I don't have any note that he was born there. He's been part of the team since 2018, but the 2019 Gold Cup, he didn't make the final cut, and so the 2021 Gold Cup was his first tournament. And he subbed into game 1 and got a starting position in that tournament. And since then started one of their 14 games since the start of 2022, but was subbed in for 7 and on the bench for 2. So aging a little bit and maybe taking on the role of a substitute. But he only missed 4 of their matches. However, 3 of them were the last 3 matches. So again, that pops up and is a bit of a worry. And I think for that reason, we moved him down to possible level. Joaquin Rivas, a possible forward. Our last possible forward is Juan Carlos Argueta. And he's been with El Salvador since 2022, just 1 cap for the 23-year-old. And he plays for Jocoro in El Salvador. And he got that first cap in November 2022 and didn't start any games, but he was subbed in for the first one and on the bench for the next 2. So he has been there for the last 3 games, kind of an inverse of Joaquin Rivas there. So we put them both as possible candidates. We have one possible but unlikely in Steven Vasquez. Now, Steven Vasquez has been with the team like so many since 2021. And he is 19 years old, so still very young, and plays in El Salvador. And he got his first cap in August 2021 and last appeared for the team in April 2022, earning 6 caps during that time. So another player who seemed to be making decent inroads and who went missing in April 2022. And our last candidate is one who sadly seems to be off the team because I've really been looking forward to see this guy play, and I've never been able to. He was not part of the 2015 and 2017 Gold Cups. I'm jumping ahead there, but I might as well continue. And he appeared only in game 3 of the 2019 Cup, and then he was on the roster for the 2021 Gold Cup, but just on the bench for game 1, and then he withdrew from the squad because he got sick. So it's like he's always eluding me. So David Rugamas was with El Salvador from 2015 to 21, 17 caps and 10 goals. So that might indicate why I'm curious about this player. That's a great scoring record, and he plays for Santa Tecla in El Salvador. However, he hasn't appeared for the national team since the 2021 Gold Cup, which is sad, but he still is young enough that he could play. He's just 32 years old, so I'm really hoping he'll show up for this tournament. And it looks like I put the candidates there on the graphic under secondary strikers rather than under forwards. So I'll just correct that. But anyway, that brings us to the end of our run through of the candidates. So we're going to leave it at that and then return in June. It's June, so welcome to part 2 of the media cast. And now we have the preliminary roster and final roster. That was a 49-man preliminary roster for El Salvador. Didn't use up the whole 60 spots that they could have. And so welcome to people coming from part 1 and people coming in for the short video at this point. I'll just kind of put a context on what we've been doing. And we created a list of players, a list of possible candidates based mostly on recent participation. And we put them into position. So we organized them by position. And then we ranked them according to how likely they are to make the squad. So all of our reasons for ranking them where we did are in part 1. And if you want to go back and see, hey, why is that player ranked as a possible but unlikely when I think that should be a definite player, we'll tell you why in part 1. But in part 2, we're just going to go through that list again and tell you who made it to the preliminary and final squad. So here we go. We have manager Hugo Perez. That's who we start with. And he was not fired in the month between the first part and now, unlike Mexico's manager. So we will consider him, we will consider him a successful candidate for reaching the Gold Cup. Now, goalkeepers, we had definite candidate Mario Gonzalez, and he did make the squad. And likely candidate Thomas Romero also made the squad. We had a possible candidate in Kevin Carabantes. He did not even make the preliminary squad there, but our possible but unlikely character, Oscar Pleites, was selected for the squad. So those are our 3 goalkeepers. And let's take a look at defenders. For central defenders, we considered Roberto Dominguez a definite candidate to make the squad, and we were right. He did make the squad, the final squad. And the 2 likely candidates, Ronald Rodriguez and Eric Zavaleta, both of them also making the Gold Cup. We had 3 possible candidates as well, and only one of them made it, and that was Eric Zabaleta. He made it to the Gold Cup, but the other 2, Romulo Villalobos and Rudy Clavel, only made the preliminary squad but didn't make the final cut there. The same is actually true of our first player, who we reckoned was seemingly off the squad, but he's not completely off the squad because Julio Cibrian made the preliminary squad. However, Lisandro Claros, we were right in thinking him off the team because he didn't make the preliminary squad there. Moving on to left backs, probably the biggest news is Alexander Larin, not selected even for the preliminary squad. So I looked to see if there was an injury or some reason, and I couldn't find anything. So we had him as a likely candidate, but he was not selected for the squad. We had him as a likely candidate, just to give an example for people coming into the short version. The reason we had him as likely was he started 8 of their 14 games since the start of 2022, was on the bench for 1 and not selected for 5 others, including their last 3 matches. So whatever happened there, not selected for the even the preliminary squad, surprisingly, Alexander Larin. The next one down, though, is the possible candidate Nelson Blanco, and he did make the squad. And then we had 4 possible but unlikely candidates. Only one of them made it to the preliminary squad, and that was Aidan Clamaco. However, the other 3, Alexis Renderos and Eduardo Vigil and Walter Pineda, none of them made it even to the preliminary squad. And nor did Miguel Limas, who we coded as seemingly off the squad. there. Okay, over to right backs, and no surprise that our definite candidate, Brian Tamakis, is selected, and so is our likely candidate, Alex Roldan. And there's a third player coded as a right back who made it, William Canales. And we had also a possible but unlikely candidate in Jaime Ortiz. I really got to talk to someone about how to pronounce that name. Ortiz made the preliminary squad, but not the final squad. Okay, and then we had one general defender, just kind of listed as a defender rather than a more specific listing, Kevin Menjivar. We considered him possible but unlikely, and he was not selected even for the 49-player preliminary squad. All right, the next surprise is coming up. That is versatile midfielder Darwin Seren, who we considered a likely candidate, not selected even for the preliminary squad. So even I checked the internet, you know, he was the captain for the 2021 Gold Cup and 90 caps. So I thought there must be a reason, but I didn't find one on the internets. So Darwin Seren, a surprise non-entry here. Defensive midfielders, we had likely candidate Christian Martinez making the Gold Cup there. He was selected, and so was possible but unlikely candidate Melvin Cartagena. So we didn't expect that, but there we go. The other possible but unlikely candidate was Jeremy Garay, and he did not make even the preliminary squad. However, the player that we thought was seemingly off the squad, because he last appeared in April 2022, Isaac Portillo, was selected for the preliminary squad, but not the final squad. In the central midfield position, we had two definite candidates, Narciso Orellana and Brian Landaverde, and both of them are selected for the Gold Cup. And now we jump down to possible but unlikely candidates, Derek Calvillo and Robinson Aguirre, and both of them made the preliminary squad, but not the final cut. Finally, Marvin Monterosa seems to be off the squad for us, and it looks like this is proof that he is, because he wasn't selected for the preliminary squad even. Left midfielder Jairo Enriquez was a definite candidate for us, and he is selected for the Gold Cup, so yay for us. And seemingly off the squad, Dennis Pineda does seem to be off the squad because he was not selected for the preliminary squad. So good shooting there for us, good predicting. And we move on to right midfielders. We had a possible candidate in Leonardo Menjivar, but Leonardo Menjivar, no but about it. He made the final squad. However, possible but unlikely candidate Kevin Santamaria was not even on the preliminary squad. Okay, we're moving upfield to left wing, and we have Kevin Reyes as a likely candidate, and he is selected for the squad. We had, well, I have him on my list as possible but unlikely. So it looks like in part one we moved him up to possible, but he did make the preliminary squad, but not the final squad. That's Armando Moreno. Okay, right wingers, we had a possible candidate with Joshua Perez, and he was kind of the only one there. So he is selected for the squad. There were two players who seemed to be off the squad, Walmer Martinez and Roberto Molina, and they are not selected even for the preliminary squad. Okay, moving on to forwards, we begin with attacking midfielders and two likely candidates, Enrico Hernandez and Meyer Gill. Enrico Hernandez surprisingly only made the preliminary squad, even though we considered him likely. Meyer Gill did make the final squad there, as did his brother. Where am I here? I don't have him on my list here, but I'm going to add him to the list. We had Brian Gill, the brother, one of the three brothers there, as a likely candidate, and he did make the squad. I was thinking as we were doing the part one for El Salvador that, just for adventure, or just because it's interesting, they might put all the three Gill brothers together. So initially I had one of them as just a possible candidate, but then I thought they may bring him, and it seems that they did. I can't remember which one was the possible candidate, but there we have it. We had a possible but unlikely candidate in Harold Osorio, but he did make the squad, so that's one of the surprises in an otherwise fairly predictable squad for El Salvador. And we finish here with forwards, and there's the other Gill brother, Christian Gill, and he was a likely candidate for us, and he made the squad. So that'll be very interesting if all three brothers are on the field at the same time. I can't wait. I feel like I'm being neglectful by not saying which one we thought was possible. So I'm gonna tell you. Christian Gill has 12 caps, whereas Meyer Gill has 2 caps and Brian has 1. So it was probably Brian. He started the last of their remaining games in May, whereas Meyer Gill showed up for the national team in November of 2022. So anyway, the thinking proved right that they brought the Gill brothers. Who wouldn't really? Now, the brothers may come at the expense of some other candidates, because none of our possible candidates made it to the Cup. The closest was Joaquin Rivas, who made the preliminary squad, but Nelson Bonilla and Juan Carlos Orgueta did not make even the preliminary squad. And that goes all the way down. Possible but unlikely candidate, Steven Vasquez, not making the preliminary squad. And sadly, nor is David Rugamas, who I was hoping to see, but we had him as seemingly off the squad, having not played for El Salvador since the Gold Cup in 2021. Okay, we move on to a couple of summaries of the information that we've given you then. And we begin with notable non-selections. So I made it clear above that we were surprised that Alexander Larin and Darwin Serene, two of their biggest players, not even making the preliminary squad. We had them both as likely candidates. And the other one was Enrico Hernandez. And Enrico Hernandez was a likely candidate too, and was at least chosen for the preliminary squad, but we were surprised that he did not make the Cup. On the other hand, we have some surprise inclusions. So goalkeeper Oscar Plitas, we considered possible but unlikely. Also defensive midfielder Melvin Cartagena, same possible but unlikely in our opinion. And well, I put Brian Gill here as a bit of a surprise inclusion, because really he was a possible candidate, but not really a surprise. The other one is Harold Osorio, the attacking midfielder, who we considered possible but unlikely. So that is that. New players. There really were no new players that weren't on our list. So all 23 players that were selected were on our list somewhere. usually in the possible or above category. And there's just one player who we thought was off the squad, so we didn't include him on our list, and that is Santos Ortiz. He actually played his last game for El Salvador in 2019, so we thought he was not a consideration, but he did show up on the preliminary squad there, so maybe still in and around the national team. Otherwise, there were about 10 players on that 49-man squad that were not on our radar at all, so we didn't introduce them in part one, and in fact they were new to us, probably playing a single game or something like that. Some of them maybe not even called up to the bench for El Salvador, but named to the squad. We won't go through all of those names, but we'll wait until they get a few games for El Salvador before we introduce them. Okay, and then updates on injuries. Well, El Salvador fans will be happy to hear that there are no injuries unless Alexander Larin or Darwin Serene turn out to have been injured, but I didn't find anything about it. It's still a bit of a mystery why they weren't selected. So that is it for El Salvador.